This hangout on air is live. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to OreAni 2015 Fall Season, Part 1. So, let's get started. We got with us today Jessica.
Hello.
Nick.
Yeah.
Hey. Sean.
Hey.
And myself, Tenkun. So, just real quick, I just wanted to share with you guys, because of the whole Back to the Future thing going on the 21st, Back to the Future was referenced in anime. Boom, there's the car. From the show Koito Senki to Chocolate or something like that.
That was like a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, you had the car drive by. It seems like a lot of classic shows are being referenced in anime nowadays. I think, what was that mermaid show? They had Die Hard with Bunta Willis. All sorts of things. Let's go ahead and get started with this season. The first title I wanted to talk about was Osomatsu-sama, or Osomatsu-san, sorry. Now, I see that I'm the only person that's seen this here in the group. Maybe Nick
You're
has
the only
watched it.
person who chose to follow it after the first episode. At least in my case.
Oh my god, the first episode, I swear was the best
Yeah.
this whole season. Just the first one. I don't care about the rest of the series. The first episode was so great. And I don't think anything's going to top that for a while. They go into so many tropes, so many events in typical animes. It's just so crazy. And of course, it's so out of this world. And it's about these 6 tuplets that had a show back in the show era, trying to make it back in the anime of today. So they're trying to figure out what it is that they can bring themselves back. And of course, episode 1, they try to bring everything into their anime to make it popular. And it's just so crazy. As you go on, though, with episode 2 and episode 3, while they're not as great as the first, they're somewhat interesting. You learn the different personalities of the 6 tuplets. You kind of learn how to differentiate between the 6 of them. But they tend to be like a lot of short skits, short comedy skits. And just recently in the newest episode, they actually referenced Saw with Jigsaw. And there's just so much going on. It's just out of there, and it's interesting to watch for me, because it's something I can pick up and just play at any time. Since there are a lot of short skits, there are a lot of short shows, it's not something you have to be committed to. And with my busy schedule, it's very easy to just start watching this. So, but like I said, if anything, people should watch at least episode 1, if anything.
Have you ever seen Gintama?
I have.
Is this like Gintama? Isn't that also like an anime parody show?
It's kind of hard to express because, like, Gintama, while they do tons of parody and tons of comedy, it tends to have its own, like, arcs, like, well thought out, or, well, maybe not well thought out, but kind of emotional arcs. And this show doesn't seem to try to have that level of story. It's just, as I've said, I've only checked out seriously the first episode, and when I skimmed through the second episode, since it was nothing like the first one, I just went, I'm off this shit. So, it's similar in how they parody stuff, but the underlying like story, like the animation, the mechanics, and just the overall focus of the anime is completely different.
Okay. Yeah, and I did hear that like the style of comedy will change episode to episode in
Hmm.
Ultramatsu-san or whatever. I haven't seen any of it.
I haven't seen Gintama, so I can't compare the two, but um, I I almost want to say it's kind of like an SNL skits where they parody stuff, but it's all within its own little skit. While Gintama kind of looks like they maybe copy some of the characters, but it's just still going through a whole story throughout the episode.
Yeah, like it is its own show.
Yeah, so like I said, Osamatsu is more like a short skits going throughout the whole thing. None of them really correlate to each other, but you pick up a lot of their personality, a lot of the quirks of each character. But like I said, if anything, check out that episode one. That episode one is awesome. So let's go ahead and move on to the next title, which I know a lot of people are going to enjoy. One Punch Man. So what? How many people are watching One Punch Man? I don't have my list up. Oh, there it is. Everyone.
Everyone.
I was about to say it might be shorter to ask who isn't watching One Punch Man.
Nobody.
Oh, it's just one of those titles. So what do you like about it, Sean?
The Sakuga. It's the latest Sakuga action vehicle, which I don't think I've seen one of those since Yozakura Quartet. What was it, Hanano Uta or something else? But the last Yozakura Quartet TV show is the last like super action Sakuga fest that I can recall. But One Punch Man is like it's an action comedy, so and like tokusatsu isn't really my thing, like Japanese heroes and whatnot. And I remember watching what was it,
Flamenco.
Samurai Flamenco for a while, and then getting tired of it. I don't know, but somehow One Punch Man works for me, and its humor doesn't really evolve. Like the parody is always the same, and it's called One Punch Man because it follows a hero who he basically became the most powerful hero of them all, and he can fell his enemies with one punch. That's what he before he became that hero. That's what he he promised to himself that he would become someone so powerful that I can defeat my enemies with one punch. And now he is that person. And he is very bored with his job because no matter how grandiose his villains, he can just fell them with one punch. He just punches them, they explode in blood and guts. And he dreams of finding like a worthy opponent. But anyway, each episode introduces like a new villain or two, and they have like their grandiose backstory, and then they encounter One Punch Man, who's just unstoppably powerful. And I think now that I've seen a bunch of episodes of it, like the way the humor works is that like the heroes and the villains, they all have this ideology that revolves around strength, right? Like something to do with like being the strongest. But then they encounter One Punch Man, and just his mere existence, like, just makes their worldviews unravel. And it's such a mystery. They in the latest episode they ask him like, "How did you become so powerful?" And then he just says, "Well, this is the secret." And then in a long drawn out scene, he describes that he basically had like this really basic training regimen of like I'm gonna do 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups and like I'm gonna run 10 kilometers every morning or something like that, and I'm gonna have 3 meals a day, and that's how I became this powerful. And it's like completely insufficient. Like it's like he has like a student, like a pupil, who admires his strength, but even One Punch Man doesn't really know why he became so powerful. He just sort of accepts it, oh, because I trained really hard or moderately hard.
He trained so
Um,
hard his hair fell off.
Yeah,
so
like
it's like all the characters around him are asking him, what is the meaning of life? And the answer is 42 or something. So yeah,
If the show has a message, it's probably that you can't get to where you want to be by taking a shortcut. Is that all of the villains are strong and powerful because of tampering at the genetic level or some sort of cheat code for life, but
mhm.
One Punch Man beats them all because he's sweat and hard work. And a lot of people think, oh, well, if you believe something hard enough, it'll come true and you can achieve your dreams, but we all know that's bullshit. And One Punch Man is successful not because he dreams the hardest, but because he works the hardest. And that's why no one can defeat him.
I don't know. I think they all work pretty hard. Even but yeah, it is kind of funny. Like they're, yeah, I don't know.
funny. I was just gonna say what I kind of laughed about the most is like, despite this guy's like self-proclaimed pretty serious training method, and like he does not have the look of the bodybuilder. Like he's still this like flimsy, bald-headed dude who doesn't really look the super powerful type. So
Yeah, and he's got like this really plain gag face.
yeah,
It's completely unremarkable.
I also liked how they handled the exposition, where Genos and the gorilla both get some time to explain who they are and why they are, and they go on this little speech, and One Punch Man's just, can you just 20 words or less? Come on.
Yep.
I thought that was a great way to handle it.
yeah. I mean, I think for this season, this show's like action and humor is simply unrivaled, and like that is the reason to watch it. If you want laughs and you want like beautiful fight scenes, that's One Punch Man is the answer.
Yeah, and it executes on it like really well. Like
Mhm.
just the quality of that production is really high, and the sight gags work because they're really well drawn, and the fight scenes are awesome, and so on and so forth. The rhythm has like good timing to it, especially when it gets into its groove. Like after a few episodes, like the first episode is like really intense because they introduce so many villains, but then the show kind of works into a groove after a few episodes.
Another thing why I think this show is actually pretty popular is the manga is actually really high quality as well. The source it came from. And I know a lot of people have been reading One Punch Man, so when the anime was announced, everyone was super excited, and everyone was already into One Punch Man for this.
Yeah, because like before the anime came out, I remembered like one of the more iconic polls that like the Google community would post is like Goku or One Punch Man, who would win?
Hmm.
Like you'd have like the traditional voting and people like trying to back the characters, but
Well, One Punch Man would defeat Goku in one punch.
allegedly.
Just that's it.
That's all I need.
I think the humor of One Punch Man is not that he trained really hard and became who he was, because I think all the villains have worked hard in their own way, unless they were just genetically modified monsters. But like the scientists struggled for more than a lifetime, to. But I think it's just like there is no reason for him to be the most powerful. He simply is, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. You can't be you will never be as strong as him, and there's no reason for it.
Yeah, and like as
It's
far
like
as the hard work went,
the pursuit of strength is just completely stupid, and that's sort of the humor of One Punch Man. That like all these characters are pursuing strength, whether they're other heroes or villains, and One Punch Man just unravels everything, unravels that entire worldview of like ordering the world through strength. Because One Punch Man sits at the top, and there's no reason for him to be there. Another thing about One Punch Man is that it comes from not from Shinichiro Watanabe, but the co-director of Space Dandy, like the guy who actually directed the season premieres and finales of Space Dandy. It seems like a lot of the animators who worked on Space Dandy followed him to his next show, which was One Punch Man, and that's the reason why it just has such super animation in it. Because he's like an animator turned director himself. Like he used to be like a pretty idiosyncratic animator. He's like one of those Sakuga people that you can sort of pick out his animation if you know what it looks like. And in his shows, he likes to give his animators a lot of freedom. So One Punch Man is one of those shows where it is basically an excuse for like super animation set pieces. And some of the best animators in the industry happily followed him to his next production because they knew that they could make some really cool stuff for it. So that it's like this kind of show is pretty rare. Just like the magnetism of a certain title or a certain director just causes all the talent in the industry to just gravitate toward it and work on it. So yeah, One Punch Man is one of those shows. It's a joy to watch just for its animation. But also everything else works, like the humor works. Yeah.
There's something for everyone in this show.
Mm-hmm. It's very entertaining.
All right. So I can't wait to see how far this goes. Hopefully, everyone's definitely going to be watching this. If you haven't started, go ahead, watch it, and you'll like it. Let's go ahead and move on to the next title, unless any of you guys have anything else to add.
Mm-mm.
Next up, we got Star Moo.
Star Moo, what the hell? What's Star Moo?
It is a musical.
Oh, the short
I thought
name
that
or
title
something.
got truncated. Can't be called Star Moo.
Star Mew.
Star Moo.
I forget what the other title is, but you cannot take this show seriously at all. It is so goofy and so out there. It's about a guy that goes to an all-boys school that has a great music and arts department. And of course he goes there knowing absolutely nothing about how the school works, and so everybody has to explain that to him in the first episode. But it's just so bizarre to watch everybody break out into song and dance randomly in the middle of the show. The student council introduces themselves via song, and there are character songs. It's actually a pretty smart way to merchandise your music if that's what your goal is. But it's pretty entertaining nonetheless if you just set your brain on a shelf and go with the flow. So I'm enjoying it, but it's certainly not for everybody.
It personally lost me at all boys school. I have an immediate thought of it being like a reverse harem, so I kind of jumped ship.
It kind of is, except there's no girl to revolve around.
Yeah, I thought one would be due to show up at some point, but like I said, I just pretty much went not for me. But I can understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I started watching this show, and it's funny because right after I went to that Osamatsu's show, and I was like, not another idol type show. But of course that changed after a while. But this show, I don't know why I'm still watching it. The characters are
One-dimensional.
I don't know.
The characters are one-dimensional.
Yeah, it's pretty typical. I mean, you could easily tell what these characters are, what's going to happen with them, and who's the lead, who's the follow. It's very, I don't know, it's what, cookie cutter for the characters. But I don't know how to explain it. I just kind of want to see what happens to the main character.
It reminds me of Glee a lot, which I stopped watching because those damn songs would get stuck in my head. And this is very much in the same vein, where you have kids in the musical department competing and that kind of thing, and with real catchy J-pop songs. But it is fun to watch. If you like musicals, it's fun to watch.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm probably honestly going to drop the show after the third episode. So hopefully, Jessica, if you keep on following it, you'll let me know if it gets better or if I should.
I'll do that.
I guess there's not really too much to say. No one else is really watching this, huh?
Mm-mm.
How could you guys? You should at least give it an episode. Well, with that, let's go ahead and go to the next. What'd you say? It's a musical too, right?
Dance with Devils?
Yes, Dance with
Yes.
Devils
It's another
is
musical.
another musical, and this one actually has a very theatrical feel to it. Um, I've go to a lot of musicals, watch a lot of plays, and the start of this has the very same feeling to it. And throughout the series, it's like you're watching a show, but then it'll switch gears, and it's almost like you're back in that theater setting. And that's got me hooked. And I like it. Content, I don't know, but the way they're presenting it, it's been pretty fun.
The student council room that they all congregate in is also set up like a theater stage, in a way. But I'm right there with you, Tank. I don't have a lot of hopes for the story necessarily, but the atmosphere and the music is really good, top-notch. Pretty good animation, too. Although the uniforms are not flattering at all, all those stupid chest ruffles and stuff. Everybody looks the same, body-wise. But it's if I didn't know better, I would think it was based on an Otome game, but it's not. It's actually an original production. So you have a heroine surrounded by a whole bunch of sexy guys that they
Is it?
allude to as being demons. What are you hearing?
Does this have something to do with a? I remember watching the first episode, and I also noticed the name Rejet or whatever. That's the game company that made Diabolic Lovers, among many other things. Like
Oh, I did not know
their name was
that.
plastered all over Dance with Devils, so I just assumed it was an Ultimate game thing. I don't know if
I'm
it really is,
pretty sure it's an original work.
but it kind of struck me like Diabolic Lovers because it had a bunch of like sinister Bishonen in it, and like
Hmm.
a helpless girl who's gonna.
It's marked original, so.
Okay.
But you know what?
Perhaps they just ventured off and wanted to do an original anime.
So what surprises me is that this is obviously one of those reverse harem shows. So, Nick, why are you watching it?
Oh, I have it marked as watching? What?
Yeah.
Do I?
Yes.
Nick, why are you watching
Oh,
Dance with
Jesus.
Devils?
I gotta fix that.
Oh, that's a Freudian slip right there.
Well, I had issues earlier with when I was marking shows, like the keyboard kept scrolling up when I was like doing a control combo trying to select multiple cells, so I think that one just got included.
Okay. Because I was like, I thought you didn't like the reverse harems. This is definitely one of those reverse harem type shows.
I watched the first episode as I do for most shows, but I didn't continue it after that.
So
I thought it was very humorous. um, so that does it continue like the first episode? Do they have musical numbers like every episode?
Yep,
yep.
at least two.
And what's actually kind of interesting about those is like when it starts, it kind of gives you like this little title. It's in a different language though, not Japanese. It's like some weird symbols, and it's like, here's the musical number. We're starting, and then they do this song and dance, I guess.
yeah, it's not like a Disney thing. It's more like, or I mean, it is more like a Disney thing. I'm saying it's not like an idol thing. It's not like they get on the stage and then
Mhm.
do the CG idol dance or anything like that.
No,
It's more like they're
it's
singing Disney songs, but it's a reverse harem show, so it's reverse harem Disney. Poor Fujoshi, I don't know. Um, so what is the rhythm of Dance with Devils? Like, do they focus on a character and like go through his backstory and or like what do they do every episode?
not so far. It's mostly just revolving around the main character trying to find out where her mother is.
Right.
And so she's only really had time with the student council president and then the other guy with the cheesy pickup lines and stuff. But she has interacted with all of the characters. However, we don't really know their background stories at all, or if they're even human. I'm assuming that they're not. It's pretty obvious that they're not, but the show hasn't actually come out and said what they are or why they do what they do. Just that they want the grimoire. She's the key to the grimoire because reasons. And she keeps trusting them because, I don't know. They just have to get her into that situation of danger every episode, I guess.
Yeah. And
Then
recently, her brother's shown up as well.
Yes, that's right. Her brother's shown up too.
oh yeah, I think I remember him in the first episode.
And then it does the classic horror. Okay, I'm gonna go leave for 5 minutes. Absolutely do not leave the house. He hasn't even turned the corner on the street, and what does she do? She leaves the frickin' house and gets spirited away by one of the demon dudes.
Right.
Really?
Leaves the house with a piece of toast in her mouth.
I did not see that coming though.
Are all the are all well, let's just call them love interests. Are all the love interests in the student council, or are there like is there also like a team bad guys that are full of Bishonen that are also love interests potentially?
So far, they're all student council members.
Okay.
There is one mysterious Bishonen within the enemy group, which keeps on getting away.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can tell who that is with the different colored hair. Um, but it's definitely the student council, and of course, with the brother, I don't think he'll be a love interest, but it's definitely he's definitely playing a big part with this big mystery that was revealed in episode 3, or maybe not mystery, but revelation to the sister.
Are they all bad boys, or
They haven't really characterized them very much other than the opening, so we really don't have an idea of their personalities as of yet, except for the real surface level type stuff. But they're definitely drawn, and their posture and body language is definitely bad boyish.
yeah, they all seemed rather sinister from the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
So it so I so it, so it's not much of a I get does it feel like an Ultimate game adaptation? Like I'm getting the impression that it doesn't feel like one of those. In the sense that like there's no methodical rhythm of like okay here's this character and then here's the backstory of this character and so on and so forth.
Right, I would say that this is definitely different. It's departing from the formula in how the story is paced, certainly.
I think it's because of how they try to make it seem very theatrical. That the
Mm-hmm.
pacing is very different.
Hmm.
Because like I said, it's very you have this very theatrical sense about it throughout the whole thing. Even if you're watching anime and you're just watching the show, all of a sudden it just changes and you're sitting there watching this musical in a theater. And it's a very different feeling from the rest of the show, and it's very unique, I think.
Okay.
Well,
Do you watch it because it's good or do you watch it because it's super dumb or
watch it because it's really, well, apart from Starmie, it's the first time I've seen an animated musical. And so that's the draw for me, is that it's so different from anything I've seen before.
I would agree with Jessica. It's because it's unique that I'm watching it, and because of that theatrical feel, because I like the theater, like I said, that I'm watching this, and I'll probably continue watching it.
Yeah, I will admit that I was kind of shocked when she started singing on her way to school. Like, I'm just a normal high school girl. I'm like, what? I've never seen this in anime before. That's crazy.
Oh, you haven't seen C plus, have you?
CC plus?
No, C plus. Remember
C plus?
Blood or something like that? Blood C plus or something.
Blood C plus?
Or was it just
Blood?
Blood C?
Like the one of the last vampire thingies?
Yeah, remember she just starts singing when she's going to school and she's walking around?
Oh, but that's not musical. She's actually singing it.
I'm
She's
just making the
singing it for
reference.
real.
I'm just making a reference with the girl singing her songs going to school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's just walking. There's a cat crossing the road. Yeah, la da da da. Oh well. Okay, continuing on. What do we have? Gundam. How many Gundam shows is this now?
I don't know.
What is this show called again? What's the full name?
It is Kido Senshi Gundam, Teketsu no Orphans, or Iron-Blooded Orphans, I guess is the official English translation. But I usually don't like mecha shows, and then I usually don't like Gundam, but what made this interesting is that this is written by Mario Okada, and it actually comes from the team of Anohana and Toradora. So it's this team who has made well-regarded high school drama shows are making a Gundam show, and I had to check out what that was. And actually, it's really good so far. And there are a lot of reasons why I don't like Gundam shows and mecha shows in general. Like especially just Sunrise mecha anime just drives me crazy. But like Teketsu no Orphans manages to avoid all those pitfalls. Because the way a lot of mecha shows strike me is that they're made for like a different audience, like an audience that I'm just not in tune with that wavelength. So when I watch something like what was that? What was that last one that they did with where the princess gets raped in like the first episode, and
Oh, is it Valve
she's also
Rave?
like singing in her cockpit, and they were fighting dragons with colorful robots.
Oh, Cross Anju.
Yeah.
Cross Edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my stereotype of a Gundam show. It's just like, or I mean, of a Sunrise mecha anime. It just has like way too much shit going on, and the everything's just like, it just looks like color barf on the screen, and then there's just like lots of dubious storytelling decisions. Teketsu no
That's not-
Orphans. This is a show that I can watch. God damn it!
Mhm.
You know, the story is comprehensible. It's not going off the deep end of like Gundam space politics with like ESP new types and like wacky Gundam technology, laser sword stuff. No, it's really grounded. It's about well, now that I say that, now I'm trying to assemble the premise into something that I can explain.
Mhm.
But it's about like basically Mars is a colony for the Earth Federation. Like they're sort of a puppet government divided into a bunch of economic blocks. But needless to say, the economy there is very bad. There are many like orphans who have joined private military companies, and they're treated no better than slaves. And it's about one PMC that sort of, because reasons, it suffers a mutiny, and the child soldiers take over the PMC, and they become basically the masters of their own fate. And you know, some of them don't know what to do, and some of them are I don't know. That said, the plot does get kind of complicated, but it feels like something that I'm motivated to keep track of what's going on. Like I actually have gone back and rewatched scenes that I didn't quite catch. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I really got to pay attention to what's happening here. Or whenever they're introducing new characters or concepts.
Mm.
Um, I like that the warfare is grounded, literally. Like they are going to go off into space and have some space battles, but initially the combat is all on the ground. The only Gundam in sight is like this crusty old thing from a war over a century ago. So it's like this Gundam that they barely get working, and there's nothing really flashy about it. Like it doesn't have a laser sword or anything. No, it just has like this big blunt object, like this giant lance
Yeah.
that smacks its enemies with. A lot of the other mecha are just like ground tanks. They're not even like humanoid robots. So I like that it's scaled back in that sense. It kind of reminds me of the MS, the 08th MS team. Like that was another Gundam that like did away with the laser sword space bullshit. It was just like all ground war, and it was kind of like military mecha style. So is this one. So and the characters are so far they're pretty well fleshed out, and there was a really good duel in the second episode, and it worked because the stakes were clearly articulated. The characters were they were they were established, and they were intriguing, and they had ideas they were fighting for, and that made it an exciting duel. Like a lot of anime doesn't get this right. For example, Kekai Sensen got it all wrong, like every episode. Like you never knew like what the stakes were or what the characters were about. There's just flashy battles on screen using powers you've never heard of before, and you don't know how they work. So it's refreshing to see a Gundam that you can comprehend it, and you can follow it, and you don't have to be some sort of like super mecha nerd, and it doesn't fly off the deep end of like trying to sell you these really colorful toys and immersing you in this like vast political lore. It's grounded. So for now, that's all I want to say about Taketsu no Orphans.
I don't have much to say about the show. It's pretty interesting. The only thing that I thought was interesting was how they named that guy Biscuit, his sister Cookie, and
Oh my God.
Tank.
I mean that's the only thing that got me. Now I was like, what? The show is doing good until I heard those names.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some really dumb names in that show. There's like, yeah, the dude's name is Biscuit, and he's got two sisters named Cookie and Cracker. There's a Lieutenant Crank who he fought in the duel in episode 2. Um, I forget if there are any other dumb names. I definitely don't like the character designs. I think the character designs are really terrible. So that's like one of the things you have to overlook if you want to watch this Gundam show. The character designs look bad. That's just the way it is. Was it Mikazuki? Like I don't know. He looks like some sort of wood puppet. Uh, his friend Orga, like he's got like this ridiculous swoosh in his hair. It just drives me nuts. The princess just looks awful top to bottom. Just has like these super ugly eyelashes. I don't know. The character designs are just terrible. But
Yeah, they actually looked rather kind of like older to me, like just nothing of the newer age. They just seem reminiscent of years past, and I do actually want to say that sometimes when you jump into a Gundam episode, you don't know what you're looking, you don't know what the story is going to be like. And there have been some pretty odd Gundam series, and I do kind of like how militaristic this one is. You have like the CG level militaristic Gundams, but as far as the anime goes, this is definitely not, as Sean was saying, one of like the more wonkier stories of just craziness. So, I mean, it's clear cut from the get go. You see the personalities and the characters, and the choices that they make on the battlefield. It, when I watch a Gundam that looks as like anime as this one does, I didn't expect certain actions to be occurring, like not necessarily like blood and guts level, but it's been a while since I've seen like a Gundam go that extreme with one of its more like you know I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes the violence can be kind of brutal in this show. Like it's stark,
hmm
and yeah, it's not like blood and guts, but it's
No.
no, like because it focuses on like child soldiers, and there's one that's particularly jaded. He will just shoot people without feeling,
hmm
without question, and it's not a big deal to him. Just blam blam, you're dead. And I think overall, like it, the it kind of has like this masculinity that's not like Gundam Wing or whatever. That it doesn't have a bunch of like scrawny Bishonen in it, but no, they're all just like hard military types, and there's something kind of grotesque about it. It almost made me think of Mad Max when I saw the first episode. 'Cause they're just fighting out in this desert, shirtless, in these like clunky robots, just blasting each other with cannons and whatnot. Like there's a brutality there that isn't so much in other Gundams, which are about like powering up the super robot with your ESP and fighting with the laser swords and dodging a bunch of missiles. And like there's something that's like I don't know, it's cool. I like it. It's different.
All right. Jessica, you have anything to add? Or
No, I think Sean covered it really well, and I would definitely agree about the character designs. They are not pretty to look at.
all right.
I think Mario Kata has this legacy of like starting a show with a whole lot of impact, and then as it goes along, it just kind of peters out, and it's clear that she's run out of ideas, and the resolution is really unsatisfying. I hope Gundam doesn't turn out that way because she's working with a director whose name escapes me, but they're the team behind Toradora and Anohana, and those were pretty well-rounded shows. Like they didn't suffer from like pacing issues or momentum issues. So my hopes are up for Teketsu no Orphans. Like I like it as a mecha anime because the scope is limited and has an aesthetic that's well defined and not just like all over the place. So it seems to me like it will be a story well told and not just like this all over the place crazy sunrise mecha anime thing.
All right. Well, there's hope for the future. Let's go ahead and go on to the next title. I'm actually going to combine the next two titles, all right, because of how similar they are at the beginning and then how they change. So we got the worst one, or Rakadai Kishino Cavalry, somewhere, and then Asterisk. And when I say these two are so similar, oh my god. Especially the main female protagonist. They're both princesses. They both use fire.
I think
They're
they
both,
both have like red hair too, or like reddish pinkish.
yeah, yeah, they have the same. Oh, it's just so similar that it drives you crazy at the beginning.
I kind of actually had to like try to think of which show is which for a while there. I'm like, okay, which one? Which one's this story again?
Yeah. So I've read the manga of both of them, so I knew the differences at least because of that, and I know where they're going to go, but it was just so crazy seeing how them release two so similar shows. And as you can see with how I positioned the names, which I believe the first one, the Rakadai, is the better of the two. So, what is it? Rakadai Kishi no Kavari, and then Gaksen Toshi Asterisk. Um, The thing I like about the Rakudai show is that um, it has more feeling in it. It has more emotion in it, and although I think it's a little more perverted than the other one, um, you feel for the main character a lot more than you would in the other one. What's his name? Iki Kurigane, and especially because I read the manga, I already knew about him, and he's a character you really want to cheer for, you really want to be there for, and as you're watching anime, you definitely have that same feeling. And if you've seen past episode 3, that fourth episode was just so good, and I would highly recommend this title over the other one. If you're started the other one, go ahead, quit it, go to this title, the Harakudai. But they also do this really unique sequence in the third episode that was so much fun to see. Just the way they animated it, the way you saw it, it was just really beautiful. And I had to watch it a few more times just because of how well it was done. The pacing seems to be going really well with the first one, and it's just so much fun. As for Asterisk, I'm just not feeling it. You still don't know really what the main goal is or what's going on. You can kind of see what's going to happen, but they really have no goal, or at least you don't know where the story's going to go right now. But one thing that bugged me a lot was Julius, the main female, because I don't know if any of you guys got this, but here, let me show you this, because I swear, like if we transition here, there in some of the scenes when I see the main character, like right here, it reminds me of Kirino so bad, or the emo. And that bugs me a little bit, how she changes that way. It's just so weird. Like here's another scene where I swear, just change your hair out, you got Kirino right there. But truthfully, I probably will keep on watching all these, both of these at least, and they're both your typical shonen, harem type shows. What about you, Nick? What do you think?
Hold on, I have to show you this thing. I remember this being passed around on Twitter, but I have the translation here, where it has the two shows side by side. The story takes place in a school. The heroine is a princess. The male main character sees heroine in her underwear while changing clothes. The heroine demands the male MC to repay with his life for peeking. Thus a duel occurs. The male MC is a sword user, and the heroine is a sword user too. The heroine's attributes: flames and cinders. But so it's basically saying that the premieres for both shows are pretty much have the same plot points and the same features. I don't know if that's true or not because I didn't watch either of these.
Well, my personal kind of take on it is I gotta say at this point in time I'm a slight bit more of a fan of the Asterisk War Below. The first series that Tank was recommending over the other reminded me a lot of Absolute Duo at first, where like we take our souls and forge weapons out of them. And as the episodes went on, you learn that although like where this Absolute Duo occurred, and everyone's like soul was a fixed weapon, the abilities get rather wonky. In one of the more recent episodes, we see this guy who like has this ability to manipulate like shadow stuff, and it just made me think of you know how your soul develops an ability. Like does that give you a natural advantage over other people? Like, our main character pulls out a sword and he developed an ability to utilize that sword. Like, it wasn't gifted to him. He's had to work the most because the story is he is the worst one. But I just see like this story panning out with people doing really obscure stuff with their like weapon of souls, and I'm just not sure if I'm all into that. The Asterisk War is just a little bit more grounded, as we were saying about the Gundam. People, although they do have variances in what like elements they kind of control, it exists in a point of weaponry exists to let you manifest your abilities. The main character, while I like the story of I like the background of the worst one. Unlike that, this main character is rather overpowered at birth. He has an enhanced ability that makes him, stronger than your typical user. So, but as far as the combat's been going, at least I know like people aren't going to be like, it's all combat based around like physical kind of sword play, arrow, like shooting arrow bits and just magic, or well, the flame element magic, and there doesn't seem to be anything like too shady about the combat, and I think the Tale of the Worst One's going to have like that level of you don't know what to expect next, and whereas the Asterisk War is like, oh, it's going to be somewhat based around sword play for the most part.
So I kind of get what you're saying, because I kind of felt that too, like the absolute duo with the whole swords, and also kind of had that Mahoka feel with, you can't properly rate you, so that's why.
Yeah, that's what I thought of too. I actually.
So it does have like some of those similar elements to other shows.
And then the sister doing like the ice thing too. I'm like, Mahoka all the way.
Yeah, so I understand that. It's like they took a lot of little things from different shows, but the reason why I'm saying that the first one is it's the main protagonist, the main guy. I feel more for him than I do in the other show.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from that, because I do too. But as far as like, like when a certain episode came out, it's like, okay, you are the worst one, but I've played many types of media around in the past, and I know like, especially from like card game mechanics, when somebody has like the super special ability going for you, just no amount of like physical speed or strength will break through that special like bend the rules ability. So I just got premonitions against it, and it does remind me of a lot of other animes, so I do tend to like Asterisk War just that little bit more, but I'll develop a better opinion of when the season ends.
So Jessica, with Asterisk War, what's your feeling on that?
I ended up dropping it because it didn't bring anything really new to the table, and the story hook of him trying to find his sister wasn't enough to keep me engaged. So I don't think it was a bad show by any stretch of the imagination. It just, it fell flat for me.
Yeah. Well, with the Rocket, I think it takes up at least to episode 2 until you really feel for the main character.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, at least see if you can watch 2 episodes of that. You might like that a lot more than the Asterix. But
Okay.
that's my opinion. Of course, Nick, with the inconsistency, chooses the other one. No. I'm actually interested to see how we end up with it at the end of the season, which one we lean towards more. So maybe I'll make a poll on Anime Talk. Which one do you think's better, since they're so similar?
This show, like these shows actually caused me to say like this seems to me like the anime season of like the Magic Sword, because there's another series that we probably won't talk about today where yet another character does like a sword play, and it actually, that one reminded me a little bit more of Karas, but not like to the grandeur that Karas is, but and then K with like the blue scepter people all having like the magical ability. So I'm like, this is just the season of magical swordplay.
I was going to mention something earlier, but I think this is the season of dance. Because last fall you had Tribal Cool that came out.
Oh, don't even, no.
And then this season you got that one.
Yeah, but those are like done by the same people. It's like they did one dancing show and went on to a whole new dancing show.
School Mew has dancing in it too. I mean, it's just a lot of dance. I think fall is just when all the dance shows come out, but let's just go ahead and move on So that's our take on those two titles. Let's see. What do we got next? This name. Utaware mono. Wait,
Nailed it.
no. Wait, I got it?
Nope.
Oh, damn it.
You dropped a syllable or two.
Utawareru mono.
Yep.
Itsuari no kamen. Nick tricking me earlier.
How did I trick you?
Or, sorry, that was Sean. I thought he nailed it the first time.
Oh.
Just
I didn't say a damn thing.
What do you like about this show, Nick?
You know, I kind of wanted to give this one to Sean. Well, I think he's developed more of an opinion of it just because he made a post about it. Okay, if Sean makes a post about it, usually he has something grand to say about it. That's just my personal opinion.
Uh-huh.
But I just kind of wanted to say that I jumped into this one. The title got me. I'm like, okay, that title, it looks like this is a season 2, and sure enough, there was a predecessor. I don't know if Sean has seen it or not. That's what I was hoping to ask him. But
Yeah, I saw it.
I did not. Okay, so I have not watched the original, like what I'm going to call first season, but I will say my premonition thus far is the second season seems to have not much relation to the first, and that someone who did not view the first can equally pick it up and enjoy it. Now, I'm hoping to hear from Sean if my premonition is correct or not, because that might change. That might get me to go watch the first season real quick.
Don't watch the first one. It kind of sucks.
I liked it. I liked the first one.
It's watchable. I don't know. I think this new production is a lot nicer, even though there's not much going on in it. The original show, Utawara de Mono, I think that was 2006 or 2007 or so. That was a fantasy epic about a guy with a mask. Like he is like this weird masked man who wakes up with no memories, and arrives in this village full of like animal-eared and tailed people. He has no idea what's going on, but he sort of gets into the rhythm of the village, and and then he rebels against the emperor or the lord or whatever, and he takes over, and then that sort of escalates into this war march, and it's sort of like this unite the continent fantasy epic adventure kind of thing. And he eventually does unite the continent or the region or whatever. And then it flies off the deep end with like crazy sci-fi backstory, and you learn that like the world of Utawareru Mono is actually it is not it is post-apocalyptic Japan, and there was like some disease that wiped out almost all of the humans, and then the last scientists or something, they had to engineer these animal-eared people to survive and that's how the human race was restarted or something like that. And then there's all sorts of other weird stuff. So it's kind of like old folklore plus sci-fi put together. It's really weird. It's so weird, and it's so sudden in the show that I forgot most of it, and I had to. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it actually has a section that explains all of that stuff. It is crazy. But anyway, the new Utawareru Mono, Itsuwari no Kamen, which is the false mask, which is kind of interesting because the protagonist of the last show, his name was Haku Oro, and he had this weird mask thing going on. This one is called the false mask, so that appears to be a reference to that. This new show appears to take place significantly far after his death, and it's not really clear, but it seems like the continent is still united, and I don't know. Like this show is not. It doesn't appear to be another like unite the continent war epic fantasy thing, because there's not really that much going on in it. But the production values are really good, and I really like the art design. Like this post-apocalyptic Japan that they made is sort of this pastiche of many eras of old Japan sort of rolled into one, like both pre-Buddhism and post-Buddhism. just like all these historical eras, and it's all represented in like the architecture and like the interesting clothing that they wear, which is like Ainu fashioned. Um, so I enjoy it in the sense of it being like a virtual vacation. Like everything about it is so glamorous and well realized, and there's not much tension in the show. Like they aren't really fighting any battles yet, so it just feels like a vacation. And it stars another a human, but he has no strange mask on his head this time. It just stars like this dude who wakes up and he has no memories and finds himself in a world of animal people. And he sort of he he gets into the rhythm of life in a village, and he discovers that the people around him are actually like, he meets like the princess, and he meets another character who then reveals himself to be like one of the generals or something, or the anyway. So after he establishes himself in the village, they go to the capital, and that's where they are now. They're in the capital. There's still no major conflict introduced yet, so I don't really know what it's going to be about. But I just like it as like a virtual vacation. It's just pleasant to watch, and the settings are really nice, and there are a lot of scenes of them just relaxing and like having good food and whatnot, and like touring the city. They toured the capital. That's what they did in the previous episode, and then there was a big gratuitous bath scene, which normally I wouldn't be into, but it sort of fit the virtual vacation appeal of the show, so it was just dandy, I think.
I was going to say that this show seems to have a little more fan service than the previous one,
Yeah, probably.
and this show is definitely moving slower than the other season, because I think like by now they already defeated a castle or something like that.
Yeah.
So this one's definitely moving slower. It's really hard to tell what's going on. But there's just one big thing that's bugging me about this whole show. And it happens right at the very beginning with the curse, and it says something to him. And that's just been bugging me throughout this whole time. So I really want to know that.
I got you.
What's going on here?
That actually kind of brings a point of question here. Since I didn't watch the original series, do you guys know something more about that curse? Because like it just seemed like I saw this like Jello monster, and I had no idea what was going on about it. Like
Everything pretty much here in this new season is pretty new.
mm-hmm.
Even the animals used to draw the carriages or what they ride on are very different.
Okay.
From the first season.
Yeah, like that's the only thing I had like a feeling of like there might be an explanation I'm missing here. But if it wasn't really referenced much in the older series, that's pretty good to know.
Like even in the older series, you didn't really see too many creatures. So like those centipedes or the curse, things like that, they weren't really in the first season, I would say.
Yeah, I can't recall, but yeah.
I mean, aside from the what's that name? The tiger, but
Yeah. Yeah, they tamed this wild tiger in the original show early on. I think that's another aspect that I kind of enjoy about Utawareru Mono, the new one, Itsuwari no Kamen, is that like a lot of it's kind of like Japan has this indigenous religion called Shintoism, and that existed even before Buddhism came to the land. And it's one of those like folk religions, and there's a lot of like animism involved in the sense of there being like local gods and whatnot. It's so to see a really early form of that would be like a Princess Mononoke, like that movie kind of depicted that world pretty well, in the sense of like the wilderness is the wilderness is full of like curses and like animal gods and like these fearsome beasts, and you need larger than life warriors that can face the peril of the wilderness and that sort of stuff. And Itsuwari no Kamen is kind of like that in that sense, that it also has a wilderness full of like great beasts and curses. And I don't really know what the curse is about. I think in the original Utawada de Mono, the revelation at the end, which is like the crazy folklore meets sci-fi stuff, was like maybe the main character was a scientist or something that was working on engineering the animal people to survive in the post-apocalypse, and somehow he got merged with like an ancient god, and then the god split into two halves or something like that, and like the one half of the god wished to destroy, and the other half of the god wished to be destroyed, and the main character was the one that wished to be destroyed. And you eventually discovered that the mask on his face was not actually a mask, it was actually his skull protruding out of his face. That's why he could never take the mask off. And then he could transform into this like giant monster thing and fight his other half at the end. It was really fucking weird. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And it all happened all at once, so you're like, oh my god. Yeah, I don't know how much Utawada no Mono, the new one, Itsuwari no Kamen, is going to refer to the old one. Like, right, so far it is not necessary to have seen the old series. I don't know if that's going to change.
Was it? I don't know if it was based off of it, but I know there's a light novel on the first one, right?
Originally, Utawada no Mono was a game. I actually played the game because someone fan translated it, and you know, I was just kind of fascinated by the setting, so I wanted to play it. It is a like one half erotic visual novel and one half tactical RPG. So it was like an erotic VN with tactical RPG battles in it, and it was completely linear. So that you didn't really make any choices that mattered. So everyone got the same story. You have sex with pretty much all of the girls in it. It's just harem.com and that thing.
Yeah, I heard the first one was a harem.
And I think this new one is also based on a game, but I don't know anything about that game. But yeah, I would be surprised if they're going to necessitate you having known about the original series in order to get this one. Like, I would be kind of surprised because that old series is really old.
I got
Especially if you go all the way back to the game, which was like in early 2000s or so. Like that's a really old thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you launch a new thing that you need to know about this old thing?
Right, I understand. And that's just, I was wondering, like, so I'm glad I got to ask people who did watch the first one.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever get really confused, just go look up Utawada no Mono on Wikipedia, and it has this pretty significant synopsis there. You can just read that and get it.
I gotcha.
I think what I didn't like about the original series is that the momentum was kind of start and stop. Like, sometimes the show would look great, and sometimes it would look like garbage. So the production values went up and down too, where the new show, the production values are consistently high. So I just like the way it looks, like front to back. It's a pleasure to watch.
I think the first one also was one of the first titles I ever saw with the CG marching armies and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's why it looked so weird, because it was brand new. But let's go ahead and move on to a title that, after watching the first episode today, I'm not watching ever again. Oops, wrong side. What is this, Peeping Life?
Yep.
I couldn't get into this. I don't know why. So hopefully you guys can tell me why you watched it.
I guess Nick is watching it. Wow.
Yeah.
I've only seen 2 episodes. I'll probably watch a third one at some point. Just didn't get around to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a high priority for me, but I think more so than what is it? Osomatsu-san? Is that the name of it?
Mhm.
This is more like the SNL of anime because
Right.
it's a straight up sketch comedy with that usually they make fun of classic manga heroes. It's basic the production is dead simple. It's just they get two comedians and they put them in motion capture suits, I imagine. The animation looks motion captured to me. So they just mocap this comedy sketch where they pretend to be heroes. And then the anime is that they then put like models of the heroes on top of them. So the first episode is about Tetsuwan Adam, Astro Boy, asking his asking the professor for dating advice, and you know that and it gets complicated because he's a robot, so it doesn't map one to one. I think the next episode is about um
Well, yeah, I just wanted to like interject here at this point. Like each episode contains like
yeah,
4
sorry, I meant to
arcs.
say sketch. There are 4 skits per
Mhm.
episode, so they're really short and simple. There's one where like Blackjack goes to the doctor and the doctor diagnoses him with chunibyo. He's like, "What's up with that emo hair and all that? You totally have chunibyo. That's your problem."
Yeah, like you know, I kind of gotta say, I kind of understand where Tank was coming from. When I first watched Peeping Life, I really didn't want to because I just looked at the quality of the animation and went, nope, not for me. But I did give it a shot, and I think its redeeming quality is not that it's relatable, but it does account on you seeing lots of older stuff. But then there is that one in the first episode has the fourth skit of like that nostalgic couple or whatever.
I
That
think that the fourth skit is always that one.
yeah,
They don't
right.
appear to be any particular characters.
No, I
It's
didn't
just
think so.
I always skip that one.
Oh man. But I was about to say, like, I think originally I was gonna drop this one. Like, I didn't really want to watch much past like the first episode, but like for the following few days after I watched the first one, I just kept kind of like remembering the skits as I was like doing mundane stuff. Like the skits weren't that great, but I kept recalling them and recalling scenes and recalling what they did, and that just kind of drew my curiosity into the next episode. And after that one hit, it was kind of much of the same. The skits weren't that overly great. Like they just weren't like the highest grade comedy ever. But it was funny enough to watch the first time. And then I just recall like the skit throughout the rest of the week. So I think that's ultimately what sold me to this series. Like I'm watching it then because I just keep thinking of it throughout my day.
So what bugged me, I think, was the pacing during the skits, because
Mhm.
it was just very slow and very weird. Like it's like they're just talking to each other, not really doing much.
Right.
Like even when she went to go get her bike fixed, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, just my bike. Yeah. Well, where's your people? Oh, he's asleep.
It was it was Doronjo goes to I can't remember his name.
I don't know the title, but it was the
Uh,
But
oh crap!
just
People are
just
horrible.
just the pacing of it just really bugged me throughout the series, and that's why I don't think I could get into this one unless they did change it.
Yatterman. That's what it was.
Yeah, you got to.
Goes to Yatterman's bike, or goes to Yatterman's repair shop. Doronjo takes her busted bike there, and then Yatterman's like, "Wait, didn't I just defeat you like an hour ago?"
And it
Like
looks like
the
right.
the premise is funny, but the show has been criticized for just sort of taking its jokes and dragging them too long, and
Right.
I get it, sure.
And I get that too, but like just to add to that, like the skit was the funniest bit to me was like when he actually fixed the bike. It looked like it was the 3-person tandem bike, and he was like, yeah, this like super advanced part that like you're lucky we had it. It's like super expensive. I can't believe where he got this from, but I had fixed it. It's like $250 or something like that. She's like, what?
Yeah, he does like 20 seconds of work, and she's like pressuring him to do the repairs for free.
hmm But it was just like I just remember the skit throughout like the week, and just because it stuck with me that much, even though it wasn't that funny, but it was something that I could recall, and like even if it wasn't that great when I originally watched it, recalling it through the week just seemed to make it better to me.
Yeah. So, but I'll have to agree with that statement because I'm not saying it was bad. It's just like
The
the
jokes drag.
premises were good. It's just yeah, that just bugs me.
I
I think
got you.
I've just gotten too used to the the what do you call it, Boken, where they just hit back and forth with each other.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not a manzai comedy, so that it's not about like exaggerated takes and that sort of stuff. I think what I really like about this, enough for it to overcome all of its other downsides, is that the production is really simple. It's like it's simple and sort of unpretentious in a way because you know exactly what it's doing. It's just a couple motion captured comedians doing a comedy sketch about heroes, about old manga heroes, and that's all it is. And there are no sight gags. There's not a lot of exaggeration. There's no Tsukomi and Bokeh kind of thing. They're not doing anime voices. It's all natural dialogue. So that's also a pretty rare thing in anime to hear natural dialogue. So in that way, in those ways, I think Peeping Life is pretty interesting. But if it's not your style of comedy, then it's not your style of comedy, and that's it. But I think within the anime world is pretty unique, like both in the style and the rhythm of comedy and just what it is. It's like barely anime. It just feels like a comedy sketch behind like a Microsoft Kinect or something.
Like with your Mickey when you came in last time. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next title. Next up, we got Heavy Object, which actually after the first episode, I was like, I don't want to watch this. I don't know about this show. But I gave it a shot yesterday, and I got through the third episode with this hell yeah. I'm glad I brought it back up. So it was actually a little more interesting than I thought it would be.
Yeah, like, I can't really say that I want to tell everybody go check out this show now because to me, I like a lot of mecha-based shows. Just personally, sci-fi is kind of like one of my big, well, the science aspect of science fiction, especially. And while Heavy Object is like it's not like that sci-fi spectacular. It's not like the science-based driven combat of, oh God, why can't I not recall the name of that big show that just came out? I can't believe I blanked on it, but oh well. A lot of the shows now like to focus on the big robot, right? Like it's the humanoid fighter that a lot of people just say doesn't make sense as a fighting robot. Like why would you have a humanoid giant robot? Like I just don't see how that'd be effective. And this show just kind of like takes that perspective and just like thrashes it. It's like we have these big hulking monstrous what's called an object. And they got layers and layers of armor. They withstand nukes. They've got like tons of cannons, lasers, railguns, and like just this unreasonable amount of like weaponry on them. And the show's perspective is they have revolutionized war. War is no longer soldiers on the field, no longer airstrikes, no longer tanks and marching in enemy territory. All the countries have invested everything into these objects, and when your country's object has lost, you have lost the war. And traditionally, objects don't even like pick off the remaining personnel unless they're instructed to. When you raise the white flag, the object goes on its way. You have lost. And it's the picture that they paint. Now, this anime tends to get from behind a story perspective in which the enemy objects aren't necessarily that's not law. It's not like you can't decimate the enemy if you didn't want to. Just typically that's how war is fought now. You just don't trounce all over the enemy because you can. And the enemy this time around is totally could care less about that unofficial treaty. And our two main protagonists of this show work alongside one of their object operators. and they kind of like done the unimaginable. Two people kind of work together to try to sabotage or take down these this war that can only be fought by objects. So that is my vested interest in this show. Is it's unimaginable for everybody. Like at one point, the characters do pretty much really like succeed in sabotage, although they weren't instructed to. They just did it of their own volition, and it almost seemed to like wake the world up. It's like we put too much resources into these objects, and we stopped thinking about war. We stopped coming up with strategies on what we can do to the enemy base, what we can do to just do general sabotage. And that's what I'm really hoping to find in this series. Now, whether it pans that way for the rest of its episodes, I really don't know as of yet. But that's what really just drew my interest in.
Well, with 3 episodes, you got the first arc done, so that's pretty nice. I kind of don't know what to expect with the rest, because obviously they're sent back out to the battlefield, and I'll probably just have to rely on you, Nick, because I don't know if I'll invest more time in this unless it becomes interesting, but
right.
It just, I don't know. I think everything was done within those first 3 episodes for me.
I understand. Like, I don't know where the story's going yet either, but I also like the names that they kind of come up with. While they're fighting in like the snowy mountain range, the enemy object was referred to as the Water Strider because it had 4 legs that it just kind of hovered on across like the snowy mountain caps and everything. And our friendly object, the one that is like the protagonist object, I should call it, is known as the Baby Magnum. They just have like these weird English names that are so Romanized that it's, I don't even know like how Baby Magnum relates to this one. The other one they're calling the Tricore because it's like almost 3 built in like joined in a triangular fashion, but.
I don't know what to say about it, but
I don't know what to say about Heavy Object either. I did see the first episode and I kind of stopped there, but the premise is a lot to swallow. Because in real life, like warfare is becoming more abstract and more decentralized. Heavy Object does the opposite and makes war like 100% centralized. Like, we put it all into this like gladiator mecha, and if it can defeat the enemy nation's gladiator mecha, then we win. That's it. I don't know. So on one hand, like that premise is kind of neat. On the other hand, I just really hate the design of the objects, the heavy objects. Because if you came to me as an 8-year-old, if you asked 8-year-old Sean to design the ultimate mecha weapon thing, unstoppable, then I'd probably just draw like a circle with a shit ton of guns like all around it. And it's like, just make that. Just make a ball with like a zillion laser guns on it. And that's exactly what they made for Heavy Object. So already, like right off the bat, it was like super dumb to me.
Mine would have been a square.
Mine would have looked like an iPhone, but then I would have been sued.
And I remember the beginning of the show like introduces like, here it is, the ultimate weapon. It's a sphere with a cannons all over it. And then they go to great lengths to explain why this is ideal. To having a hard time buying it.
Right. Like it's not that I'm buying it for its practicality, but I just want to see like what kind of blew my mind as I was watching the first episode is like we really don't have like base level security protocols anymore. Like we just don't have like stationary guards who you got to use like credit like ID pin codes and stuff to get into special rooms. Like the show takes that it just throws it out the window. We don't like putting a simple pin combination on a door is easy, and we don't really think to do that anymore, I guess. So a lot of the main characters' actions can be already pretty much null and void, based around a few security precautions that we pretty much enforced in today's age. Just, we wouldn't like trust a military base to just have like simple twist locks on it. All right, you got to have like your retinal scans. You got to have something, and that seems to be what this show does not focus on. So it takes a lot for granted, and I just really want to see like what it does as far as the whole like sabotage feel. Like that's what I'm in this for. If the main characters stop performing sabotage, I don't know what to think about this show anymore.
I also just find it hard to swallow the idea that if there were such things as heavy objects, that all other forms of warfare would evaporate.
Mhm.
That I think it would just make warfare even more guerrilla-ish. Just like with the United States and its adversaries, right? Like we have the best weapons. We spend the most on military technology and all that. Like we spend like I don't know. But anyway, so what our adversaries have done is that they are looking to fight us in asymmetric ways. Not just like, well, we're going to make our own super weapons that can match your super weapons. No, they're going to fight us on terms that are not the same.
Mhm.
And that's like hacking or other forms of guerrilla warfare, like all the IEDs that happened in Iraq when we occupied that country and all that. So I don't know. I just find that I don't like the mecha designs of Heavy Object, and then I also can't buy the premise of Heavy Object. Like this is what would happen to warfare if
Mhm.
we had like these sort of like super kaiju weapon things. But whatever.
All right. Well, before we hit on to our next title, I just want to see if Nick, did you want to talk about Young Blackjack, or should we save that?
I don't think I had that one, Phil. I think that's Jessica.
You had it marked blue.
Dang it.
So
No, like earlier, I thought I fixed all that stuff, but it looks like it's still a little messed up. But like when I had the first one wrong, I noticed a bunch of other stuff that was marked that I didn't watch, and a bunch of stuff that I was watching was not marked. I thought I had it all fixed, but I guess I missed that one.
all right, so we'll go ahead and move on to Owari Monogatari, which is, I don't know, what, the 5th season? 4th? I think it's the 4th season, right? Because we have Bakemonogatari.
It's kind of hard to keep track.
Don't make me
Bakemonogatari.
recite the entire chronology. I totally can. No, let's do that right now. So there's
Oh, no.
there's Bakemonogatari, which went like through 15 episodes,
Mhm.
and then what was that? Nisei Monogatari, which is considered a
Follow.
side story,
Right.
and then there was Neko Monogatari Black.
Kudo, yes, sorry. Sorry, guys. Give me help.
Yeah,
Mute
and then-
audio.
Then Neko Monogatari Shiro, or no, well, no, it just went straight into.
Bakemonogatari
It
2.
was called Monogatari Series Second Season.
Yeah.
So that ran 2 seasonal quarters, and then we had Hana Monogatari Suruga Devil, and then we had Suki Monogatari, and I don't remember the chapter name of that. And now, goddammit, we are finally at Owari Monogatari, even though it's not going to be the end.
Because we still never received the first.
It is not going to be Owari. And then we're going to have the very beginning of it all, prequel trilogy, Kizumonogatari, coming to theaters. And we're probably going to have some more stuff after that, or during that. Because who knows how long it'll take them to put out the entire trilogy. Might be 3 years. Yep. So Owari Monogatari, we're at like episode 60 something at this point. If you total it all up, it's like 60. Or even 70s. I think when Owari Monogatari ends, then we'll be at like episode 70 something.
And this is
entire series.
just as a little note to begin with, if you've never seen any of the Monogatari things, you definitely shouldn't start here. There's just so much you'll be missing out.
No, you have to watch it back to front. The only thing you can skimp out on is, I bet that you could watch Kizumonogatari, the movie trilogy that is coming soon. You could probably just watch that without having seen anything else, because that is the very beginning of the chronology. Like, that is the first story. I've actually read that novel, and yeah, it doesn't seem like you need to know much about the rest of it. But aside from that, like, there's no point in watching Owari Monogatari if you didn't watch the dozens of episodes of anime before it.
So this, what is it? The season is all about math.
Not all of it. I actually kind of want to call it like the detective chapter of Monogatari because it feels much more not Sherlock Holmesy, but like they've made obvious mentions to characters being detectives, and that's like the story that I feel I'm being fed thus far.
I'm just
This season starts out in like the worst way because it starts with this double episode, and the episode is just more dialogue heavy than the show usually is. It's even more dialogue heavy than the usual Monogatari. It's hard to imagine, but they've done it. So it's just like 48 continuous minutes of just like speed reading these subtitles and crazy visuals on the screen, and that was really taxing to get through. But
all in one room, right?
yeah. Yeah, that I don't know. I thought it was really bad. Like I had a really low opinion of the show when I saw that. And I'm like, oh god, why am I still watching this? This is torture. But once they get past that, it's kind of interesting. I'm starting to think that this season is going to be more about Araragi than because a lot of the seasons have been about like Araragi exploring this other character, but even though they do introduce a new character, Sodachi, which is like Araragi's long-lost childhood friend or something like that, it seems to be more about him. Like, I want to know more about Sodachi so that I can learn more about Araragi. I want to learn more about Ogi so that I can learn more about Araragi. So I'm starting to think that Ogi is actually this a creation of Araragi in the same sense that Hanakawa has made Kako and Hanakawa Black. Like, she has separated parts of her personality into these yokai or oddities or whatever you want to call them. Then it seems like Araragi has the potential to do this too, because he kind of created the room that they were stuck in the season premiere. And it seems like Ogi, and one of her catchphrases is, "I only know what you know, Araragi. I don't know anything but that." It seems like Araragi has forgotten things. Like, he has forgotten things about his recent childhood, and Ogi is sort of leading him to rediscover those things, almost as if she's the keeper of Araragi's unwanted memories. So I'm interested in seeing like what that was. Like, what is it that Araragi is going to discover, and why did he forget those things? And this puzzle revolves around his encounters, his confrontation with Sodachi. So in the latest episode, like they're going to they visited her apartment, and he's gonna go in, and that's the cliffhanger. And I'm looking forward to it. There's a good amount of hype about it for me.
So one thing I have noticed, and which is kind of very different from the rest of the series, is there isn't too much humor in this arc as compared to the others.
Yeah.
In the other ones, they always had some really good humor, especially with what's her name? With the snail. What's her name?
Hachikuji Mayoi. Yeah.
Yeah, Mayoi. There's always certain comments, certain jokes that would be coming out. But this
Yeah,
one,
there's always like a funny quirk with every character that Araragi knows.
and
There's some funny interplay between him and Mayoi and Senjo Gahara and what's her name, Suruga. But not with Sodachi. Like there's a pretty intense bitterness. Like they used to be friends in their childhood, but that friendship is completely fractured, and Araragi can't remember why. Like he can't put it together, but Ogi is there, like leading him to rediscovery. So yeah, it is relatively dire. Like there's not much humor in it, and Ogi is kind of a severe character. Like in the most recent episode, she had an encounter with Hanakawa, and that was very severe. Like she just saw right through Hanakawa and told her all these things that Araragi would not dare to say, right?
hmm.
Maybe that's something that he is externalizing into this creation of his, Ogi.
Are you
At
talking
least
about
that's
episode
my theory.
4?
I
Is
think,
it?
yeah, that's what he's seen most recently.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's a pretty intense episode.
Yeah, you know, personally, I've been enjoying like the detective side of this Monogatari, but as Tank kind of mentioned, I also do kind of like and dislike the amount of math terms they put into this. You know, I had to look up that like Euler's identity thing because I had no idea what that was, and I enjoyed that I got to learn like why the Monty Hall problem probability thing works. Like I looked that up because I was
I
probably
looked that up too. Yep.
I would be one of the initial people who would be all like, I don't get why this works, and
I knew
I
why
was
it
in
worked.
that.
I learned about it once, and then I forgot, and it drove me nuts. I'm like, I can't watch the rest of this episode. I'm gonna go to
Right,
Wikipedia right now.
right. So that's what I also do. Like I got to know what it is that they're referencing before I continue with the story. So, and in the Monty Hall problem, I enjoyed. Like there was a whole lot of learning there, but like with the Oilers' identity, there wasn't much. Like if the rest of the series continues adding stuff like Monty Hall, I'll be happy. But
Hmm.
if we just like reference like math sequences and stuff, I'm not too well vested. But yeah.
I think this is where Araragi gets interesting for me,
Mhm.
because previously he was kind of a simple character in the sense that I didn't find Araragi that interesting before. I was actually more glad when I saw an arc where he wasn't the protagonist. Like the Kaiki arc was awesome. I really liked Hanakawa's arc in a second season. Where it
The
takes
very
place.
first arc?
Yeah, where it's first person to her and she's staying at Senjo Gahara's place while all these places are mysteriously burning down. Like I was glad to see arcs without Araragi in it, but now we're back to him, and suddenly he's interesting because he's flawed, right? Like there's something crazy about him, and Ogi kind of articulates his ideology in the latest episode, where she says something like, "My outlook is more like I show excessive amounts of gratitude, even to the extent that I will put my life on the line." And then I was like, "Oh, this is actually what Araragi does." There's something insane about him. Like something's not right with him. And Ogi and Sodachi are going to be the keys to understanding like what exactly that is, like what's wrong with Araragi. In the sense that like Kako and Hanakawa Black are the keys to understanding what was wrong with Hanakawa. Because she was insane in her own way. She wanted to be like the perfect child, but in order to do that, she had to separate like the bad parts of her into these other things. So yeah, I'm actually severely interested in Owari Monogatari right now.
Hmm. All right. I don't know much what else we could say? Um, I guess we'll go on to the next title, which has Nick all over it. An
Next few, probably.
Anittore? What?
Oh
Okay,
God, it's this one.
Anitore EX is I think it's like a 12-minute short, maybe less. I forget its runtime, but Tankun, I'm going to preface this one with do you remember an app that circulated around on Android? It was like it almost set itself up kind of like a dating sim, but its main push was to get you to do stuff like push-ups and squats and crunches and whatnot.
Oh, Hanako, something like
No, it had a pure English title. It was like it was his run off your time. I think it was like burn your fat with me or something like that. Something dumb.
that. I think
And
they had previous shows too. Like there's a previous anime about it too.
well, I don't know if I've necessarily watched that, but like that whole thing is what this show tries to be. Um, it's got that protagonist who is like I guess you're not looking from the point of view, but when the episode 1 happens, like I guess you've just arrived at the door and this character's like greeting you and just dialoguing with you as though you are responding or not. And the whole point of it is they perform exercises to which I think they're trying to entice the viewers to do the exercises alongside them, but that's not like always necessarily the point here. But it's one of the first exercise animes that I personally watched. If there was a predecessor, I honestly have not checked it out. And as you can see in the subtitle there, in the image you have pulled up, anime de training. So yeah.
I think there's like some other type shows. Like there's this one where basically she's sleeping next to you, and that's all you're watching is her sleeping.
Hmm.
And then they have another one where she's doing workouts, and you're just sitting there helping her work out. And then of course there's that phone app that you're talking about. I think Nathan has it.
Yeah, I think that's like where I ran into. I just remember seeing it around and like I tried it out once and then I went, yeah, I'm done with this. Like I didn't stick with it for any part of time just to try it out as a demo. But yeah, so I guess like, hey, you know what? I watch this stuff, and living a lifestyle in which you tend to watch shows a lot more. I don't probably get as much physical exercise as I should. I try to take out on the bike and whatnot, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch this thing, and whatever the crap they're doing on the screen, I'm just gonna do it alongside the anime. This will force me to work out while watching. Something that I could probably do on my own, but I just haven't come up with like a regimen or anything, so like whatever this show's trying to sell, even though it's not necessarily the show itself is not motivating me. It's like because it exists, I'm only doing it because it exists, and if it's supposed to goad people into, that's the only reason. I'm like,
I've skimmed around the first episode just long enough to just have the reaction of, man, they make some really weird shit. So it seemed to me just as a straight-up exercise video that is animated.
Right. Yeah.
I've not seen more than like 60 random seconds of it. So is that what it is?
Yeah, they do the workouts, and they're not necessarily, I don't know, I can't remember them pushing the viewers to do it, but like the first one, she's kind of dialoguing as though she's all like, oh, look at my workout clothes and stuff, and like there's like a point where they're they're dialoguing with you to try to like draw the viewer response, but the second part, because I think there's 2 or 3 workouts. The first one I think only had 2, because the second workout like premised all around that she had to do it so she could go get like ice cream. Like, I want to go get the super something something ice cream from this one store, and then they have like this little commercial about that damn soft serve ice cream. And like after she does the workout, the only reason she's working out is to go get this ice cream. Like she goes to the store and it's like sold out.
I need to burn some calories before I regain them.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes it seems like it addressed the viewer, and sometimes it seems like it couldn't care too much about them. So I'm not too sure. I'll know by the time it's done. I've honestly only checked out like the first one so far. I have the others downloaded, but I know I'm gonna like watch it. I'm still kind of like deciding what I am gonna be following and what I'm not, like with a few certain series. So once I get
Yeah.
that all settled.
I also don't want to give the wrong impression. It's not really an exercise video because if you look at the camera work, it's really just panning around her body.
Right, at
So
times.
that's not what an exercise video looks like.
Right.
It's selling the character in the
Mhm.
guise of being an exercise video.
Mm.
So
Or at least having an like that similarity to a video, but it's definitely not like your morning workout video where that's all it's focused on. No, it's trying to flesh out the character at least a little tiny bit just to get you enticed enough.
I'm sorry, but I just read this and it's kind of funny. It says this guy, the episode director for Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, and Izuma 11 is directing this anime.
Yeah, okay.
So from Naruto to this, yay!
I wonder if they're going to try to teach jutsus by the end.
Training with Naruto. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I have honestly only watched the first episode. I had the others downloaded. I'll get to them like this week, and then But I know I'm going to be locked into it just because it's like the whole reason of there's a workout going on the screen, so I shall perform the same alongside. Just because, why the heck not? If it exists, I'll use it. I'll use it as an excuse to do something.
So according to this, there's going to be 5 young women who are
Oh,
aiming to
geez, it's
become-
going to be different every episode?
so they're aiming to become idols. They do exercises for different routines.
Okay. So I might get a couple different characters. Who knows?
God damn it, Japan.
So I think that's it for the titles we're going to be discussing for right now. I'll save what? Oh, you added one more?
There is at least one, yes. I didn't add one. There was always the one. I did not add one. It was there.
Okay, what is this? Kowanban? What?
Koabon, I'm guessing. Koabon.
Koabon?
Bon.
What is this?
What the hell is that?
Okay, so if I were to describe this,
it's that weird horror thing. Okay.
It's a weird horror thing. There's two weird horror things. Because the other weird horror thing was that Kagegawani, which I was also going to bring up in reference to this one. Because I watched both of them, and that. What was that? It's in that list. I don't know if I actually said the name right. I'm going to go look it up real quick. Somewhere in here. Yeah, Kagewani. And so this one is it brings back that Akuno Hana level rotoscoping, and I think the other one did too. The Kagewani, I believe, is what it's called. I just looked at it. But anyway, this one is more like that what's that ghost story thing, the American like horror story or something like that, like Paranormal Activity. That's what I'm thinking of. So this one is like Paranormal Activity meets rotoscoping meets camera point of view shot. So like this whole anime proceeds. It's a short. It's not a full half hour. At least I don't recall. And you're always looking from the perspective of the camera somehow. Either it be a webcam, a security cam, office cam. It's always from a camera, and it has that Paranormal Activity level stuff. There's ghosts happening, and you're kind of like watching someone get not spirited away by ghosts necessarily, but usually something happens to somebody. But it has that level of horror to it, and it's really creepy because it has the ghost, right? The other one, which is a non-camera point of view rotoscope thing, it tries to mess with like supernatural kind of, not supernatural, what is like the Loch Ness monster and stuff like that. It doesn't reference them per se, but it like the first episode is a Loch Ness like monster, and I think the second episode was like the Abominable Snowman, and Like, there's this guy with like a weird scar on his face, and he like goes around investigating stuff, but he's like not the he is, but is not the protagonist of the series. It involves him in some way, but usually you're watching the activities of someone who's actually interacting with these mythical monsters, beast things. So that one, it did say it tried to be a new style of like suspense horror. I didn't really feel it from that because, it's like monster attacks, right? So I didn't care for the camera work. I didn't care for how it looked. But what I do like about this one is it looks like, the ghost aspect is creepy enough where we've seen horror films where we have like unexplained, like the Grudge girl or whatever comes out of the TV. It's like there's no explaining ghosts. They do weird things. Um, they can kind of mess with you, and I think the weird thing, the interesting thing about this one is like you always see like the rotoscope footage at the end, like while the credits are rolling, you see like the actors in the setting that they used with like windows and like computer screens like with green cardboard cutouts for green screen technology on them. So like it doesn't try to disguise that it's rotoscope, but I always kind of like watch the ghost possession stuff, and I'm like, what's going to happen this time? From our camera shop point of views, our camera animated point of views.
All right.
Well, that's really weird. So a found footage rotoscoped horror anime.
Yeah,
I'm actually gonna have to
That's
check
really
that
weird.
out. It looks interesting.
yeah, that's what drew my interest in it, and it doesn't look that great because, like, Aku no Hana didn't really look that great, but it tries to be that like paranormal activity, random like ghosts just messing with people, and not like messing with them as in like what was that Raycon? Like they didn't like just nonchalantly mess with people. Like this is like serious. Like people are disappearing and stuff's happening to them. Killer ghost activity on like camera point of view with rotoscoping as the main point of action.
Weird. I'm just watching clips of it on YouTube right now. Weird.
All right. So I think that'll be it for today. Unless you guys have anything else to add. We'll save some titles for next week when we hopefully have everyone else. We still have a lot of titles to go through. Sakurako-san no Ashimoto ni wa shitai ga umateiru. That's long.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about Subete ga F ni naru, the perfect insider. I forgot to mark that on the list.
That'll be good for next week because I haven't caught up with it. It's one of those shows I feel like I have to sit there and watch with a good amount of time. That's actually another reason why I skipped one of these titles right now. Concrete Revolution, I think it was.
Oh, you're watching that?
I was trying to, but the time skips are so... I was like, it's wait, you went back in time? Wait, no, it's this...
Yeah,
I'm going to have to give it time to figure out.
That show is really intense. I couldn't take it. Like I bailed at the first episode. It's too crazy, but I do want to hear about it.
So I'm going to check that out a little more. Jessica says, if you love boobs, Valkyrie Drive Mermaid was made from the person who did that Quasar show.
Oh God, really? That's where that came from?
I guess. I haven't seen it yet. So.
Yeah,
I did watch the first episode, but
so did
I
I.
could see that. But I mean, it made about as much sense as like any other show whose point was like, to a point topless action. Where Quasar kind of focuses on that. This show doesn't seem to focus as much. I don't want to like describe it now or anything because I really only watched the first episode.
So hopefully we got a lot of shows, and we also saved some of those really cute titles for you next week. So let's go ahead and end. I'd like to thank you guys. I thank Owen Evans for our art. And we'll be here next week. Triply, take care. Hopefully you come back. That's it.
Bye, B.
Bye, B.
Bye.